Welcome back to Believers IAS Academy. In today's topic of the day discussion, we will be discussing about the India's present status as world's largest plastic polluter. And this is very fascinating considering how India is marching towards becoming a 5 trillion economy, or is presently considered the third largest, or let's say the fourth largest country in terms of GDP, that recently India achieved a milestone. So this, on the other hand, is a stark contrast in terms of how India is performing, not just being the largest plastic polluter, but also considering the e-waste. India is currently the third largest, only after China and USA, surpassing these two, or let's say after China and USA, India is currently the third largest even in the e-waste pollution also, right? So, what is it all about? So that is what will be going to study in this particular video. And this is Madan Gopal. Welcome you all once again to Believers IAS Academy. And today's topic of the day discussion is about India being the world's largest plastic polluter. So why are we studying this? Because of the recent study released by the Nature study, which identified that India is contributing or is emitting 9.3 million tons annually, which is almost 20% of the global plastic emissions, or one-fifth of the global plastic emissions is from India, is considerably a very alarming status on India's part. So even before we are trying to understand what the actual problem is, let's try and know what waste management is in the first place. So what is the definition of waste management? Because see, the root cause is knowing what waste management is, and if this definition is not clear in terms in within the implementing agencies, that is when the problem arises. Because the very definition says that waste management refers to the systematic collection, treatment, and also the safe disposal of waste to minimize its impact on environment and the human health. So based on the definition, it says that collection, right, treatment, and also the disposal, which most importantly is the safe disposal of all these items to minimize the impact on the environment and human health, is what the definition is. But in the implementation process, collection of the waste materials happen, they are even treated to some extent, but when it comes to the disposal, or I can say both the treatment and also the disposal in terms of being safe, or let's say the safe disposal, is what is problematic and is what has contributed to India's present status of becoming the world's largest plastic polluter. So on this lines, let's start the video, right? Because this definition is also so open-ended and so wide to interpret that it even includes recycling, compositing, and even energy recovery, which is the recycling of the materials to ultimately derive energy out of it, in a sustainable manner, to conserve resources and promote sustainable growth, is also part and parcel of your waste management, which if efficiently doesn't happen is going to be a problematic thing, and that is what has happened with India. So now, status of the waste generation in India. So let's try and understand what is the present status. So India produces over 1.59 lakh tons of waste every day, and this is coming both from the urban and also the rural side also. And rural areas, if we see, they are generating around 15,000 to 18,000 million liters of liquid waste, which is the grey water, and about 0.3 to 0.4 million tons of waste, or let's say the solid waste, daily, right? And according to the Energy and Resources Institute of India, the country annually generates about 62 million metric tons of total waste, which includes a huge amount of hazardous waste, and of it 5.6 mt is your plastic waste, 1.5 metric ton is your e-waste, and then 0.7 is 0.17 is your biomedical waste, right? So apart from that, there are few more data which you have to keep in mind. Only 43 metric tons million 43 million tons of the total waste gets collected, and just of this 12 metric tons is scientifically treated, and the rest 31 million tons ends up in the ocean dump. So this is what we discussed in the very beginning, that considering what is the definition of the waste management, if it is not being properly implemented, that is going to create the problem. And here it is clearly visible that of the 43 mt of the total waste that gets collected, only 12, 43 is a total, and of which only 12%, or let's say 12 million tons is scientifically treated, right? And the rest 31 is what is being dumped in the ocean, right? So hence obviously there is no other hard and fast rule as to why the country is presently having that tagline, right? So accordingly, the central pollution control board projects that India's waste generation will rise to 165 million tons by 2030. So this is also important to keep in mind, important data, right? Now, what are the key government initiatives associated with it? So, first is the Swachh Bharat mission. So, it was launched in the year 2014, and initially it was focusing mostly on managing the liquid waste and also the solid waste. And accordingly, in the year 2024, in fact, more than 5 lakh villages right now have both liquid and waste management facilities within them. And of course, it is a very transforming initiative which gave out a lot of benefits to the country population. And another sideline or subordinating another scheme is the Swachh Bharat Mission Urban 2.0, which now, after eradicating or developing this habit of using the toilets with the people by implementing the liquid waste management and the solid waste management, the Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0, the Urban 2.0, now talks about free garbage city, right? So this is also important. And accordingly, we have waste to wealth mission. So waste to wealth mission is to make sure that how the waste is being monitored, and how innovation, scientific innovation, right, and your advanced technologies can be integrated in managing the waste management, right, is what this waste to wealth mission talks about. Or in simple terms, it talks about reusing and recycling the waste using innovation and technology. And third is the waste management rules under the Environment Protection Act 1986. So there are few key regulations which are included. So you can pause the video and take a screenshot, and you can read all of this. This is also important to keep in mind. And then last one is the EPR, which is the extended producer responsibility. So under EPR, what happens is it makes the producers, the place where manufacturing happens, the place where these items gets produced, so it makes the producers responsible for the collection, the recycling, and even disposal of the products, especially their waste products. And this pretty much is implemented for almost everything. In fact, your plastic waste, e-waste, the batteries, and also to some extent oil and everything, right? So this is also one of the scheme which is introduced by the government, extended producer responsibility. However, there are still few challenges that tries to control, or let's say tries or gives an hindrance to the country's progress towards becoming a garbage free country. One most important thing is the lack of proper infrastructure. And here is a clear data which gives an idea. It states that dump sites outnumber sanitary landfills by 10:1. Means for every one scientifically approved landfill, there exists 10 illegal or unscientific dump sites or disposal sites. So now, what is the difference between a sanitary landfill and a dump site? Dump site is that area where all the garbage, be it plastic wastage or e-waste or solid waste, water waste, everything gets dumped in this one particular area. So here no treatment is happening, no dumping, or let's say no proper management is happening, no sorting is also done, right? Ultimately what happens here is they burn everything to the ground, so it also leaches some harmful effluents into the soil, and also some hazardous gases also released out in the combustion of these harmful chemicals or products like methane, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, right? So in India, for every one scientific landfill, which is on the other hand, let's say you can imagine a landfill which is pretty much covered, right, which uses certain approved chemicals for the treatment of these waste items, and also the proper management is taken care in terms of how the emissions are monitored, right? So for every one scientific landfill in the country, there are about 10 natural dump sites. So that is also one of the biggest bottleneck in terms of how infrastructure is not aiding towards the management of the water, the waste in the country. And also another thing is the 90% of collection coverage is claimed, much waste is burned or mismanaged. So of the 90% of the wastage that the authorities claim that they have collected, of which 90%, right, most of it is either burned or mismanaged, right? So that is also one of the important thing which clearly states that it is right now showing limited scientific processing. So scientific processing is using, or let's say the scientific landfills, the usage of the scientific landfills. Next is the underreporting of waste management. One key data shows that official figures shows 0.01 kg plastic per capita a day, which is vastly underestimated with the actual levels of 0.54 kg. So even the authorities which claim that they have only collected 0.12 kg of plastic per capacity in a particular day actually is distorted, because the actual figure is very much high, which is 0.54 kg, especially in the rural areas and the informal sector. So this is also one of the problem where the leakages with respect to the waste is also happening. And also another one is the weak EPR systems, right? The weak the EPR which we discussed just right now, which is the extended producer responsibility, which talks about the producer's responsibility in terms of collection of the plastic, even the processing, even the disposal of everything, right? So even the weak EPR system is also one of the huge contributor of the lack of waste management in the country. So now what are the measures? One is the most important case you have to keep in mind. The Vellore District Environment Monitoring Committee was a district collector 2025, where Supreme Court ruled that having or emphasizing on a cleaner environment is part of Article 21, which is right to life. And also under the data transparency and accountability, it has mandated that in order to make sure that accountability is maintained, public disclosure of waste management data has to be done, which can strengthen accountability and prevent manipulation, and also ensure credible environmental reporting going forward. And also it is important to integrate some modern technologies like geotagging, digital monitoring of waste sites, along with linking material recovery facilities to enhance that the EPR e-waste portal is functioning more properly. And this can also improve traceability and efficiency in the waste management. And last but not the least, to make sure that the industries, right, the producers, they prioritize on biodegradable and modular product designs than going for something which obviously creates pollution. And also incentivize customer recycling by giving customer some incentive, probably if they are returning back the used bag, let's say what we currently see in Zepto, or let's say even Swiggy, Instamart. If we return the old carry bags to them, probably I think there is some incentive associated with that. I'm not really sure, but this is one of the example how you can incentivize customer. Probably if you donate, or let's say if you give back, let's say a used can of Coca-Cola, let's say probably if you give it back to the vendor, and let's say the next Coke you want to buy, probably there's a 2% reduction in the prices. This is the some of the kind of incentivization that governments can bring, or even the private players can bring, in terms of incentivizing customers to develop or make sure they inculcate recycling as a habit, and promote sustainable consumption to build a resilient circular economy, right? So that is all for the video. Before we end, we will solve one prelims question. Which of the following are covered under the waste management rules framed under the EPA, which is your Environment Protection Act 1986? Number one, plastic waste. Number two, biomedical waste. Number three, battery waste. Number 4, construction and demolition waste. Select the correct answer. Anyway, that's all for this particular video. Signing off. This is Madan Gopal. Have a wonderful day.